Hey there guys, and welcome back, and welcome to the final demonstration. This, as you can see, we spent about 2 hours here getting everything lined up, just finishing off the fog of war on the map, making sure it worked correctly, and then doing some minor cosmetic changes, which I need to continue in the next session, but that is beyond the point. The point is that at this point, we have all the demos working to the point that we needed them to be working at, and now we can actually start creating the game, which hopefully should go by quickly because, again, we set all the mechanics up ahead of time, and now it's just a matter of getting random events triggered, getting all the code stitched together, and implementing a lot more content, because obviously we're a bit lacking in that compartment because, let's face it, that's not what we're focusing on just yet. So with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and look at the bit of code that we did this session. Again, it's not going to be much because all we had left was Fog of War, and I found out, or remembered, one of the two, that we actually still had, we actually started, set up at the very beginning, the framework for the Fog of War. We just had never properly implemented it. So it did not really require much from me. So coming over here, let's see. Is there anything I want to hit before we talk about Fog of War really quick? Let me just double check. I don't think there is. I'm just going to... actually, there was one more thing. We cleared ports as well. So that is actually, if I recall correctly, the first thing I did. So we'll go ahead and talk about that one. I forgot. So over here in the map demo, as you can see, we now have this ports visited tab. Tab. Yeah, this isn't a tab. A ports visited array that we set up, variable, and that ends up down here in the reload map function. So as you can see here, we take each of the locations in the ports visited and we put them into replacements, which is passed into this object right here, which goes to get map. Now, the way these get in here is just very simply when we, let me just control F it because that's a bit quicker. Ports visited, ports visited. There we go. There we go. So when we call the clear port function, and this is called F12, that's a lot easier, on enter port. So we set up a separate listener on the enter port one because we didn't want to do it as part of collect from cache, because collect from cache is called for both enter colony and enter port. So on the enter port, we call clear port, and that goes heads and adds, as you just saw, it just pushes to the ports list the location. So that's pretty simple. That took 5 seconds to set up. And then, like I said, we just compile that all, or we compile all that rather, into a list to send over to get map. And I keep on getting lost here, but that's all right. Regardless, we head over to map and we can see what exactly is happening there. So in map, come up here to get map because that's what we're looking at. This used to be, I believe this used to just be mask. Let me check the GitHub really quick. Get map, yeah, previously it was just mask. And now we have options as the object, and we can pass in mask or replacements. So for replacements, we go ahead and on the map that we have created here from array on, this is the same as before, but for each of the replacements, we replace that location with the value. So we have a location value pair here, replace symbol at location, location replacement. Very simple, very straightforward. We had that infrastructure in place, we just extended it, we just made use of it. Next up, we default to our own mask. Our own mask previously was false. This is the Fog of War, the mask is the Fog of War. So up here, I made a couple changes. First off, I allowed us to auto-generate the mask as all zeros. So if you pass in true at this point, it will automatically create a mask of the correct size with all zeros. And then when we get down here, all of this we had already done, it turns out. I had forgot we had already done this. So applying the mask to the map was something we already had established. So the only thing we actually needed to implement was clearing the Fog of War when you move. or for other circumstances, because again, there are events in game that may reveal parts of the map, so that is pretty, this is flexible enough to cover all those things. So as we come in here, I decided to do this as stupid simple as I could, so I just made a recursion to determine all the cells that need to be revealed based on location and range. So obviously the mask right here is again fog of war, location is where we're centering our circle on, and then the range is a circle around that point. Now again, we are dealing with square coordinates. They are, obviously not going to perfectly be circular, but close enough. So the way we do this is, where's the best place to, I guess just start up here. Basically, we'll pass in, for example, player location and player.vision right here. That's basically what we start out with. And we'd also have this cache object right here. We run through recurse radius. We make sure that location is valid. If the location is not valid, if it's off the map, then we do not use that location. Otherwise, we add that location to the object. When we add it as a key, it automatically stringifies it. It automatically turns it into a string in order to create a unique value to put into the key register. Because it turns it into a string, we can either, in theory, reparse that string, or we can just, because we're using an object, store it as the value. That is the reason why we're using an object. I tried to use a set at first, but a set unfortunately uses the identity property. So if I, for example, pass in 1 0 to the set, and then I try another 1 0, I will actually end up with 2 1 0s in this set right here, because these are two separate objects. They are two separate identities right here, even though they are the same exact array. So set was not working without having to convert the values to something else, something that could be defined as unique. For example, we could have stringified the location ourselves, put it into a set, but then we'd also have to destringify it. We'd have to parse it back out on the other end. It's a lot simpler to just set the value we actually want on an object, so that's the route I decided to go with. Next up, we have our base case, or your exit condition, whatever you want to call it, and that is we are at range 0. That means that we cannot travel any further, so therefore we return from the recursion. Otherwise, we can go ahead and reduce our range by 1. That, increments our recursion steps, so to say. And then I just have a very crude up, down, left, right here to recurse through. One of those things, there are different ways you could do it, but again, I decided to keep things simple, stupid, so I just recurse across each of the directions here. And then at that point, once we have the cache populated with all our possible values, all our valid values, then we can go ahead and iterate over object.values cache. That will give us our x and y coordinates, and then we just have to go into the mask and set those to 1. So again, a very, very simple implementation. And the very last thing we needed to do to get it running was head over to map demo and hook it up. So at the very top here, get up there. We set vision. So this is setting the vision at the initial location. The character initializes on the colony location, which is 1010. So this will set the initial vision. And then every time the player moves, we just got to reset the vision, which I decided, so there's a couple different ways we could have done this, but I decided to just do it in map. So over here in map on move, it automatically updates vision. This is not necessarily the best thing to do, but I decided I couldn't think of any edge cases off the top of my head where we would not want this to happen. So for the time being, this is right here, but after the player's location has been changed, then we update the fog of war right here with the new player location, and obviously just as the same old player.statistics.vision. And we are modifying our mask in place here. That may or may not be valid because our mask may be null. This is technically, this could break it in the future. and we may need to come back here and change this. However, for the time being, the map, when we do the gameplay, I should say rather, when we do the gameplay, you're going to start out with Fog of War anyway, a pre-generated mask. So I don't see a situation in practical terms where this will break, but technically speaking, it could be a problem. So for example, the quick fix would just be if this dot mask. That would be the quick fix, right? And, or I should say, if this dot mask and type of this dot mask does not equal undefined. There we go. So that is the quick fix. And I don't know if I've ever explained this in a recap video before, but just in case you're unfamiliar with this, undefined is actually a truthy value, which means that if this dot mask is undefined, it's technically true. It's actually considered a true value, which is why we then have to check whether or not the type is undefined. I suppose you could also, I'm not sure what value it actually check because I don't think it has a constructor, so I don't think you'd be able to do constructor.name. But this is the simple way of doing, just checking if the type of is undefined. And that is more or less that. Honestly, I know it says 2 hours of work here, and I guess that was just a slow 2 hours, frankly speaking. Because the only other thing I really got done was a little bit of reformatting of the main page right here. So for example, I put in this traverse menu right here, because as we'll see in just a moment when I hop over to the game itself, the demos themselves, I set up a bit of a menu to begin with. So I did that. I decided to reorganize it because eventually I don't want the map demo, colony demo, combat demo to all be on the front page. I want that hidden away. So we had to incorporate that. So I started to do that. I did a little bit of CSS right here and here. And just to start trying to format things. These actually did not work, so I'm going to have to refix that. But everything else was just, again, little bits of formatting, and you'll notice all these M's right here, just that we're all above board. This was, I was setting up for the stream, okay? And I realized that the changes that I had made actually broke our ability to play the demo, and that would not be good on the final stream of showcasing the demos. So I had to make some minor quick fixes to get that running, to make sure that the demo actually worked. So here we are over on the internets. As you can see, this is what it looks like now. It's going to be stylized better in the future. I just have not had time. And all our demos are hidden away in the demos button, in the demos submenu. As you can see, we can go back and forth here. The play button does nothing right now because we haven't implemented that. So let's go into start menu, and here you can see our Fog of War. Actually, this is one thing I did not mention over in the code. I totally forgot. So let's hop back over to the code, hot second. When I go over to map demo, which we are in right now, and reload map, let's see, do this. There we go. You'll notice here that I had to wrap this in pre, and that's because when you set the inner HTML, and possibly also when you set text, it strips out all the white spaces. So back over here on this main page, basically what I was getting when I initialized it originally was all these dots left aligned, right? These were all pushed left against the wall here because there were no white spaces. It stripped out all the white spaces. It kept the breaks in there, but it stripped out these spaces. So we had to wrap this in pre in order to fix that. And frankly, at this point, because it's wrapped in pre for pre-formatted text for the record, instead of joining with BR, we could join with new line characters. So RN maybe, and it would work exactly the same. One of those things I have breaking him right now, but we'll see whether or not we change that in the future. Otherwise, back to the demo just so that we can see it for one last time before we move on to the game. As you can see, as I move, the Fog of War expands. We'll come up here, fight this guy like we normally do. Collect our scrap, and you guys should be familiar with how the demo works at this point. So I will just run through this right quick. will not take the damage this time. Pick up our loots. Come back here. And actually, this is something that I should showcase because, again, this is something that evidently we did afterwards. As you can see, that is no longer there. And after I go into the colony, because this is a demo, it does not come back. Now, in the main game, in a dark room and in our game, when you go into the colony and come back out of the colony, then those do reappear. But not so here. So, gonna come over here, find the dungeon. Let's fight some cats. Plant our marker. Whoops, try not to die. Try not to die. Ooh, crap. Alright, well, we died. Alright, you know, we're gonna go just fight him right off the bat. And actually, I don't know if I have enough repair bots for this fight at this point because I just ran over here. We'll see what happens. Oh, I also don't have a geolocator. Nice. Let me quit demo. Do this. Oh, that is broken. That's amazing. I wonder why that's broken. I wonder if that's broken because I messed with the demo, how the demo worked. We'll see what happens after this. So we're here. Grab this stuff. Okay, there it goes. I wonder why it was broken the first time. Hilarious, hilarious. Alright, boss fight. Try not to die this time. Try not to die this time. Alright, cool. There we go, boss fight. Got the enhanced and get our loot. Cool, and there we go. And just for the heck of it, we'll hop back in here. Alright, and we have done it. So that is the entirety of the demo. Kind of lame that it actually broke on us right there. Weren't able to go into the colony on the initial boot. But, one of those things. We're never coming back here anyway. I guess I'll try to fix it in the future. Just when I have spare time. But I am very excited to be able to say that we are moving on to actual game production at this point. So no more demos, actually putting it all together, and as I stated earlier, this should go by hopefully very quickly. My goal at this point, I have not said this before, but my goal at this point is, it is currently 11/29, 2002. I'm hoping to have this done by Christmas of this year. So we got a little under a month to get the whole game done. Now when I say the whole game done, maybe we don't have as much content as we could have, but I want to have at least a decent amount of content and the game actually functioning. So what that will probably look like is maybe some repeat events and maybe some repeat bad guys, but beyond that, we should hopefully have at least the game functional to the point where we can get to a end screen. That's the goal. And that's not something we've talked about yet on the stream, on these recaps, is what exactly does the end of the game look like? Because I actually never reached that point in a dark room on the web version. Now, I did talk to my brother a bit more after I started this project, so I understand what the end point was in a dark room for the mobile version, because as I found out, the mobile version evidently is an enhanced version, let's say, of the web version. It was basically co-opted by somebody else, kind of like I'm co-opting it like this. But instead of the guy writing his own code, he just took the code that the other guys had and then enhanced it from there. So one of those things. That's not something I've shared online yet, but I did do my research, asked my brother, he looked into it a bit more himself, and that's what I found out, is basically the mobile version on iPhone was a basically, you know, like I said, an enhanced version, a version where a third party came along, asked for permission to add content to the game, and then added content and made some quality of life improvements. So now that we are moving on to game production, I guess I just wanted to get that out and mentioned that I do understand that at this point, but that doesn't really change anything for us. So for us, what exactly an end game might look like, which is where we started this conversation about 20 minutes ago, before that tangent, I haven't actually put that much thought into it. So it's possible that it may be one of those journey back to Earth things, but I don't think that's actually the case. I think Earth is going to be gone in this game. There is no more Earth. It may be journey to the next Earth, to the new Earth. That may be a possibility. To a new inhabitable planet that can support human life without spacesuits and whatnot. It may be something else, but that's something I've got to consider in the coming weeks. Again, we have probably, I guess it's a little under 4 weeks, if we have about a month, to get all that sorted out. And yep, that is everything for me, I guess, at this point. It's obviously a bit of a shorter stream because the work we needed to get done was significantly easier to get done than I expected, because I forgot that we already had the framework in place to provide a fog of war. So actually getting the fog of war implemented was easy as pie, a slice of cake. So let's see. Yeah, I think that's it from me. So as always, guys, thank you guys for watching. The GitHub page is down in the description now. It is unprivated, so you guys can go over to the GitHub and download it for yourself to run it locally if you would like. And we are officially out of alpha and into beta development, so that is awesome. And yep, as always, guys, thank you guys for watching if you have been, and I hope you have a great and wonderful day, afternoon, or evening wherever you're at in the world, and I will catch you next time.